Yo, what's up, dogs? I'm back once again. This time we are going to talk about Napoleon, directed by Ridley Scott. Now, I saw this like a week or two after it came out on initial release, and I was just waiting to see it with one of my friends, and he came to my town. We went to the downtown location, which has the recliner chairs, and I definitely made sure I had a nap because those chairs are notorious for putting me to sleep during long movies. And this movie is only like 2 hours and I think 36 minutes, which honestly, I wish this movie was way shorter because there's a point in this film, which I will mention, that I thought was the end. Like, it was just a good ending point because this movie, you know what I'm saying? This movie, who was this movie made for? Anyways, when we got to the theater, got the concessions because I felt like this was an event movie. I honestly was thinking, like, I wanted to see this movie the moment I saw the trailers for this film. I was like, oh, nice. Ridley Scott coming back to do like a bio drama, epic kind of film. I'm down with that. I like his work. Gladiator, you know what I'm saying. I like when he goes into those time period pieces and fools around with history a little bit. And yeah, so I was excited to see this film, so that's why I got the concessions. And at this location in particular, I would just like to note that they do have the peanut butter M&Ms. So I was hyped up more for the concessions than probably the movie. Yeah, because like you know how treats work, you know what I'm saying. So we get in there, and I think there was only like 15 people total that were at this theater with me. And we just saw it in standard definition, no IMAX or anything like that. So yeah, yeah, it's a movie because like I would just like to say my experience while watching this film with my friend. I feel like we laughed more at the weird dialogue and how Joaquin Phoenix portrays Napoleon. It was just funny to us. Like, I felt like when I was watching this movie. Now, to me personally, I wouldn't say like I'm a Napoleon scholar by any means. I know Napoleon as like a really badass war general that like knows military tactician. Like he's an elite level, one of the best to ever do it on planet Earth. You know what I'm saying? So I know there's a certain military prowess or manliness that I'm expecting from this character, but I also do know about the concept of like the Napoleon complex, and like he was a disgruntled person and grumpy and hated people for like, and these could just be missed too. Like my grade, like my history stops at grade 12. You know what I'm saying? So like what we learned, and that was back in like the 90s. So Napoleon history might be changed quite a bit since from when I was in school learning about him. So I've always had this vision of Napoleon as being a little hot-headed, temperamental, kind of like how he's portrayed in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. But he was just so damn good at military conquest that no one really wanted to mess with him. You know what I'm saying? So when watching this film, that is what I was expecting to see. But me and my friend kind of felt like we were watching this like shell of a man who is more of a crybaby or a simp over Josephine, played by Vanessa Kirby, and all of his actions seemed very pouty and very whiny and very like just like a weird child who doesn't get his toys or whatever. But like all of his actions revolve around Josephine. Like it's such a weird portrayal of this real life person, and I just kind of felt like, was Ridley Scott just taking the piss out of us? Like, did he get paid his $200 million and just made a movie dissing Napoleon? And we're all cool with that? Like, I don't know who this movie was made for. Like, I'm not a huge history buff, but I think if history buffs who are going to go watch this movie, they probably hated it. And like for us who are there to just watch a cool ass story about a historical figure kicking a lot of ass, I think we're all going to leave the theater the same way going, what the hell did I just watch? Like, this is such a weird character and just the way he's portrayed. And I don't know. Like, well, let's get into the movie a little bit more here, okay? So, like I mentioned, the budget is $200 million. I read that it was somewhere between 130 to $200 million, but the most I've seen out there on Google was $200 million. The box office as of now, and I don't think the movie's in the theaters anymore, but it brought in a domestic total of $53.9 million and an international total of $117.7 million, bringing it up to a worldwide total of $171.8 million, which means this movie is a flop. So Apple paid $200 million and got $200 million worth of this film. And I just don't know if it was worth it. I don't know, you know? And like, if you look at the critics side of things, Rotten Tomatoes has it at 58% for the critics, and the audience is at 58 as well. Like, we're both agreeing. Like, this movie is kind of like, what the hell did we just watch? The Metacritic is 64 out of 100, and the user side of that is 4.7 out of 10. The cinema score is a B minus, and I personally have my letterbox at 2 out of 5. You know, and I feel like we're all in the general same consensus of just thinking of this film, going, what the hell did we watch? What was that? Is this the Napoleon that we all learned about, or is this just like, you know, someone just taking the piss out of an important person? I think he's an important person. You know what I'm saying? So let's get into the movie. I have my notes, and this film, like I said, directed by Ridley Scott, it's a hot mess. Okay, now there are beautiful scenes. There's beautiful, there's some beautiful cinematography in here, and there's some nice blocking and, you know, perspective and all that stuff and framing of certain scenes. There are some really eye-catching things going on in this movie by Ridley Scott. However, the editing of this movie is absolutely absurd, and I would also like to question that the script leaves you sitting there asking yourself, why is everything happening? Okay, and now let me just start it off. Okay, and this will be hopefully pretty quick. So the movie starts off in 1793, where Napoleon watches Marie Antoinette beheading, right? And we just see that, and we're like, okay, that's cool. He's there for that. And then it goes to another scene where he's discussing that he has an idea of how he's going to take over Toulon. So then we go to the siege of Toulon. And it's a pretty cool scene where it's a night scene where they attack Toulon, which is a military base. I don't know much about Toulon, to be honest with you, and they don't explain the importance of Toulon in this movie. So we see this cool scene of Napoleon and crew storming Toulon at night. It's a nice scene, and I think we see his horse blow up too, which is actually really cool. It's like one of the first scenes you see of death and destruction as a cannonball hitting his horse. It just explodes everywhere. It's actually really cool and really well done. But they capture Toulon and they burn all the ships and stuff like that, and I guess they liberate the harbor. So after that, I might be missing a scene or two, but everything's a very hard cut. It goes next, and we get to Napoleon meeting Josephine for the first time, and him kind of just courting her. And she doesn't want really anything to do with him, but he's madly in love with her. And you don't really know who Josephine is. She is, to me, I don't know much about Josephine at all, okay? Especially when I'm watching this movie, I don't know anything about Josephine. Now, after the fact, doing my own research and reading up about everything, I know a little bit more about her. But let me just go into this as I was watching this movie. I know nothing about Josephine. And to me, she is portrayed as a lady of the night, you know, a mistress of the dark. Someone who works the nights for money, for pleasure. Oh, that doesn't demonetize me. And that's how she comes across. And I just thought that's how she was the whole time. But if you actually look her up, she's a lot more important than that. Very more important. But that's how she comes across in this movie, where she's just kind of like a street worker, you know what I'm saying? And it's weird. And so there's another scene where a boy shows up, because I think, wait, is that what happens? A boy shows up. Maybe that happened. Yeah, I can't remember the order of it. But a boy shows up and is like, my father died in the war. I would like this saber back so we can have something to honor him and remember him by. And Napoleon's like, we don't give weapons to citizens because you might kill us or something. But then he finds a warm spot in his heart and goes and finds the saber, but it turns out that where all the sabers of fallen soldiers are, there's no names or anything, and there's a joke in here. This movie has a lot of weird jokes, really weird jokes, and so he just takes the saber and goes to the kid's house, and it turns out that that's Josephine's house. And now, like, I don't know if that's Josephine's kid, like that's her son, but I believe she has 2 kids, and one is the daughter, and I think that is hers. So that like kind of just like makes Napoleon fall in love with her even more. And I can't remember if I think he gets married to her before he goes to Egypt. So he gets married to her. And then there's like a hard cut to a sex scene where he's just raw dogging it from behind. And it's absolutely hilarious. The cut is hilarious. My friend laughed at it and I laughed at it. I think we were the only ones that ever laughed. My crowd laughed at a lot of random stuff in this movie because the movie itself, I have to say, is funny, but unfortunately funny. You know what I'm saying? I don't think it's supposed to be funny, but it comes across as funny. It's weird. It's so weird, right? So then after he marries her, Napoleon goes to Egypt. That's in 1798. That's where you see in the trailer, he shoots the cannon at the pyramids, and the pyramids fall, like rubble falls down, and that war is done. And then they just show like a little bit of his campaign. Not a campaign in Egypt, but him looking at the spoils of war, I guess, because they have a scene with him looking at a mummy or a pharaoh that's mummified, you know what I'm saying? And like he gets a little box out and he looks at it, and it's like, it's just a weird scene. It's an awkward scene. But it's just, I don't know why it's in there, honestly. And then during the Egypt campaign, he finds out that his wife, Josephine, back in France, is having like a lot of affairs over there. So he's like, I'm out of here. I'm going back to back to France to see my wife and see what's going on. But like his generals are kind of just sitting there like, if you go, you'll get in trouble. Like you're, what's the word? I don't know what the word is, but he leaves, and it's like it's against the laws of war or something like that, right? But he's like, I don't give a damn. I'm going to go. So he goes back, confronts her. They have more sex. When he's back, there's a coup, and he becomes the first consul. And then after that, I forget what happens when he's the first consul, but no one likes him out there. Like Britain doesn't want to deal with him. Austria doesn't want to deal with him. I think Russia doesn't want to deal with him. No one respects him. So after that, it's 1804 now, and he's crowned emperor. And that scene, honestly, just looks beautiful. I actually really like that scene just as a visual, where he's being crowned and he crowns himself, Caesar and all that jazz. That's probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Actually, all my favorite scenes in this movie are the action scenes or the war scenes, but I'll be honest with you, they're not great. They're short, you know what I'm saying? But I still really enjoyed them. So then after he's crowned emperor, we have the Battle of Austerlitz, which is, I think, the best scene in the movie, because that's the scene where he shoots the cannons on them while they're on the ice. And it's just a really cool scene. It's a cool little battle. It's a short battle. It just looks visually cool, but at the same time, you could probably sit there and be like, there's only like, how come he only has like a handful of soldiers when he should have like probably 60,000 men with him, but it doesn't look like it. It looks like he only has like 100. Kind of weird, but whatever. It's a cool scene. Just visually a cool scene. And there's some, it's an alright scene. You know what I'm saying? It probably is my favorite scene of all the battles in this movie is probably that. So then we fast forward to now it's 1810, and Napoleon questions Josephine why he hasn't had a child yet. This whole scene is absolutely ridiculous, okay? Because there's a scene, I think his mother shows up, and she's like, we'll test her. If she can't bear you a baby, because he has sex with Josephine, and she's like, if she can't bear you a baby, it's not you, it's her. And then he has sex with some other virgin, and literally within minutes, the virgin woman is pregnant. And I was like, and like the mother announces it. She's like, she's pregnant with your kid. And like, it just was like instantaneous. And I was just sitting there, I'm like, what? How is this possible? Like, wouldn't it take a couple of days for her to get like morning sickness and like actual show signs like that she's pregnant? But the scene is just bang, 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 bang. And you're like, okay, sure. And then that causes, I think Napoleon has to divorce Josephine. That whole such a weird sequence. So then after that, Napoleon meets his new wife, Mary Louise of Austria, and she bears him a son a year later. So he has I guess, the bastard illegitimate child. I don't know if that child actually ever gets born into the world, but when he marries this woman and has that child, a son, he actually, also, I forgot to mention that they banish Josephine, not banish her, but they put her away somewhere in a nice little villa so she can live the rest of her life and be like looked after. Like Napoleon looks after her because he believes that she is his true and only love. So he still wants her around and in his life, and he sets her up really well. But when he has the son, he comes and visits her, and he lets her carry her and stuff. And honestly, I thought she was gonna kill the kid. Like, it just was like a weird scene, and my mind was like, is she gonna kill him? Like, she gave up everything for this, and it's like so weird. I don't know. My mind went off in a different little tangent there. But yeah. So we have after that little introduction scene, we get to 1812 where Napoleon invades Russia. And I'll be honest, when this scene happened, it says 1812 Russia. My mind was thinking about Canada and America's war of 1812. I was like, that's kind of cool. There was a war going on here and a war going on over there, right? Like, it's just things happening at the same time, and they're both important, right? So he starts invading Russia, and okay, there's a thing in this scene when they're on their way, like they're invading and fighting. There's no fights. There's a lot of I guess I would call it guerrilla tactics by the Russian forces, and I honestly don't know much about Russia. Okay, I'll be the first one to tell you that, especially Russia 1812. But these guys that were ambushing and guerrilla tacticking looked like Mongolians to me. And I was kind of sitting there going, what are the Mongolians doing over here? Like, why? What is this Russian Asia look? You know, I didn't get it. You know what I'm saying? And they looked weird. It just looked weird. And I thought it was out of place. And I didn't understand the relation of these Euro-Asian troops. And I was sitting there going, what is this? You know, why are the Mongolians over here? Like, it just looked weird to me, and I didn't understand it. You know what I'm saying? And so he gets to he gets to Moscow with, I don't think he has any battles along the way, but the weather kills off most of his troops. And when he gets to Moscow, it gets burned down. Now, it doesn't show him burning it down, but they say that the Tsar, I think it's Alexander, burns it down. And yeah, so that makes him leave Russia or Moscow, and he comes back, and he lost. And when he comes back in 1814, there's this coalition of forces that there's this coalition, which they don't really explain who the coalition is. And it tells them that, you're abdicating your throne and you're going into exile in Elba. And Elba is an island. And honestly, once they say he's going to Elba to be exiled, I was like, oh, this is where the movie should end. I was done. As soon as they exiled, I was done. I'm like, cool, I don't need any more. But the movie doesn't end. And we go to him finding out that Josephine is sick in 1815. So he decides to just up and leave Elba, and he escapes the island, and he starts a new military force, and he's walking across France now, campaigning and picking up more resources and troops and stuff. Like, there's no fighting going on here. He's just walking. And what is it? The King Louis the 17th, I believe, sends a crew out to stop Napoleon. But once they meet each other at this certain spot, Napoleon pleads to them and is hey, I'm your friend. And the troops are like, yay, we want to be with the emperor. So they just join him, right? And then they do. So now he has this giant troop of, I guess I would say professional military people and just the citizens of France militia. He has a new army, and he somehow becomes the powerhouse of France again. I don't understand it. It doesn't explain it, where it's well, how is he the leader of France again? What happened there? Did I miss something? Did I fall asleep? I didn't fall asleep once watching this movie, to be honest with you. So I don't understand what happened, but now he's in power. And so we get to the Battle of Waterloo. Now, I know of the Battle of Waterloo. This is a very important battle. It's like the battle of all battles. There's a movie dedicated to this battle called Waterloo. I think it came out in 1972. It's old. You can watch it on YouTube. I have seen it. I've seen it. It's long and it's cool. Man, I watched that like so long ago though. Like I actually remember watching that. We watched it in history class. We watched Waterloo. So, and that was in the 90s. But I haven't watched it recently, to be perfectly honest with you. So I was excited for the Waterloo battle because I've seen the Waterloo movie. I know about Waterloo. I know this is going to be a cool battle sequence. It's not. It's actually not good. It's very short. And there's one scene in this movie. I have to bring it up, okay? There's this dude with the British guys. And somehow he has a sniper gun. Okay, so it's a musket rifle with a telescope on it. And he's like, I have a shot to kill Napoleon. And the general's like, no, we're not going to do that. And I'm like looking at the gun, and it's like I'm laughing. I'm laughing at how silly this sniper gun is in like 1815, right? Right? It's 1815, I think. And it's just hilarious. It sticks out like a sore thumb. And I'm sitting there going, I don't think anyone's ever thought to do that. Ever. At least back then, right? So it was just so dumb, and it was so comical. And I would just like to point out that my friend fell asleep like 3 times watching this movie with me. He dozed out a couple times. So the Battle of Waterloo is short and sweet when it shouldn't be. And Napoleon loses, and he retreats. And then again, like I know you're saying, Brett, your notes are so bam, 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 bam. That's how the movie is. It's just cut, intersplice some sex scenes, intersplice some weird dialogue between Napoleon and Josephine, intersplice some weird dialogue between Napoleon and Alexander. Like, there's a weird scene where Napoleon and Alexander are talking, the Tsar, and he's like, can I marry one of your sisters? And he's like, yo, she's 15. He's like, oh, well, let's do it. And like the Tsar's like, no, thanks. And it's comical and bizarre. There's a lot of this movie is comical and bizarre. So we're at the end. That's the end, right? Like, that's the end. He loses the war. And then we have a scene of him on a boat where the British dude shows up and he's like, hey, we're going to kick you out. You're going into exile on St. Helena, okay? They don't explain why. They don't ever explain why they just don't kill this guy. Like, why keep him around, right? Like, why did they not kill him on Elba? Like, in my mind, it would be like, well, if you killed him instead of exiling him, maybe the people of France would revolt, and maybe that's what they're afraid of. But the second time, I don't think people really cared about him that much where they would cause another revolution. But that's just what I was thinking. So, like, why wouldn't you just kill him, right? So, and he's captured by the enemy. Like, the British have him or whatever. So, why not just kill him? But no, they exile him again on St. Helena. And then they have a scene of him just chilling on the island, watching 2 girls doing some sword fights. And Napoleon, he dies. And I think he sees like a dead fly in his wine. And he just keels over and dies. So I guess it's to imply that he was poisoned. I don't know if that's true in history or not. But I was like, okay. It's a comical scene where he literally, like, he's here. And you just see the back of him. And he just goes, dead. And that's it. Dead. And then after that, they just show us his kill-death stats and ratios of, like, how dope in battle he was and how many men he lost and how many things he, like, and that was it. That's the end of the movie. Yeah. 2.5 hours. And it wasn't good. I was very disappointed after watching this movie, you know? And that I think it's because I was so excited to watch a really cool war movie about Napoleon. And like, because I like what Ridley Scott did with Gladiator and stuff, right? So I'm like, oh, we're going to get something really cool. And on that, it's like, yeah, we got really cool battles. And they're not super cool, but they are cool. They're nice to watch and see. And there is good destruction and chaos and death and all that. But, yeah, it just was like kind of ho-hum. Like, I left the theater going, what was that? You know? And me and my friend were talking about it more in a sense of like that was a joke, right? That was a $200 million joke about Napoleon, wasn't it? Or are we are we misinterpreting what Ridley Scott was giving us? You know. So yeah, that's the end of the review. And man, what a weird movie! It really was. And honestly, like a week or so later, I haven't even thought about that movie. Like I thought about the movie in the sense of like, what was that I watched? Like, why was it written like this? Why was Napoleon portrayed like this? And like, I listened to Ridley Scott's interviews about the movie. I listened to Joaquin Phoenix's the process about being Napoleon and stuff like that. And it just feels like they just did whatever they wanted. You know what I'm saying? So do I recommend this movie to you? Honestly, I would say you don't need to watch this film. You don't need to. You're not missing anything. If you're a Ridley Scott fan, okay. If you want to see something like I don't even think it's like so good, it's like so bad it's good. You know what I'm saying? Like if you want to watch it out of a curiosity just to say you watched it and you want to talk about it with the boys, okay. But like I don't really see a reason for you to go out of your way to watch this movie. I don't see a reason for you to go and get an Apple Plus subscription to watch this movie. Will I buy this movie and put it into my collection? If it's available, I will buy it. Not right away. But it's the only reason why I'm buying it is to kind of complete a Ridley Scott filmography. You know what I'm saying? That would be the only reason why I buy it. And honestly, I probably would never watch it again. Yeah, I don't even see a time and place when I'd be sitting down at home going, hey, you know what? I could go for a pizza and watch Napoleon right now. I don't think that could ever happen, which is upsetting. I probably would watch Waterloo again. So that's the end of my review. I really have nothing else to say about this film. And the next movie I plan on reviewing is Dream Scenario with Nick Cage. It's an A24 film. I really enjoyed that. I'll just give you the heads up. Enjoyed it. And yeah, that's it for me. So whatever movie you guys are watching, I hope you're loving it and digging it. I'm out of here. Peace out. Bye.